I've really enjoyed what I've seen from David Ayer. A specialist in LA cop movie duos and gang culture, he's made several of these kind of movies and some others, including a war film and a superhero movie, both which still incorporate his most used themes. I'm quite a moderate fan of his. I've enjoyed all of his films that I've seen, even scorned ones like Sabotage. Interestingly, the only film of Ayers I haven't seen is the one that, good or bad, propelled him into the mainstream spotlight, Suicide Squad, and has left a lot of people with bitter taste in their mouths. So Ayers' latest project, a $90 million action sci-fi police movie, concerns two cops, one a human, Scott Ward played by Will Smith, and one an orc, Nick Jacoby played by Joel Edgerton, who become tangled in an overnight chase regarding killer elves and magical wands. One of the movie's most interesting elements is that it is set in an alternate universe where humans and mythical creatures coexist. Think if the events of Middle-earth happened a few thousand years ago and what life would be like with all those creatures in the modern age. Jacoby is in a tough place. Orcs keep to themselves, and being the first one to join the force has caused him to be an outcast. And interspecies racism means he won't be treated any better by the LAPD. He's got an added stigma attached to him given that several months ago Ward was shot by an orc, and the word around the locker rooms is that Jacoby let the attacker go after giving chase because they were the same species. Ward isn't sure how much truth there is to this rumour, but isn't willing to get shot again, asking his chief to have Jacoby transferred to another partner, a request which is refused. You could remove all the mythical elements from the film and have it set in, say, 1960s Mississippi with Jacoby being a black officer, or in 1970s London with him being an immigrant from the subcontinent, and still have the movie function for around half an hour. The discrimination level at Jacoby is not dissimilar to what we see on the news today, or, if we're more unfortunate, see in our own lives. The film sits on this for the opening 30 minutes while it builds the main story, Jacoby feeling ever torn and without identity, but staunch in his servitude to the law. This is not new ground at all for Ayer, and I was engrossed by it all. The stuff with the racism and Jacoby's internal struggle takes a back seat and becomes an undercurrent of the film very quickly, however, until it swings back right into the forefront right at the very end of the film. Because the mythical elements of the film take centre stage after the half-hour mark for most of the film, which involves backflipping elves, enchantments, spells, evil wizards, and in general the kind of stuff you'd associate with, say, Harry Potter, only R-rated. Funnily enough, the film swings in this direction after Will Smith says the line, "We were doing so good." And I was ready for the shitfest, but honestly it never really came. I did enjoy this film. I laughed at the cop banter, I felt for Jacoby. It was pretty serviceable stuff. It belongs to a category of what I like to call fluff movies, films like Red Heat or Supercop. These kinds of pictures aren't going to change the world, but if they are well made and you're in the right mood, they can be the best thing about your day spent in bed with a raging fever, which is exactly how I watched Bright. Ultimately, what I found Bright to be was one orc's journey to self-appreciation and fulfillment. I did prefer it when the film was just about two bobbies on the beat, then stopping a dark wizard from enslaving the entire world, though. And it remains to be seen what they explore in the already ordered sequel given the film's interesting lore. Like with most buddy cop action movies, the action is probably the thing you'll remember least about the film. Often the shootouts and car chases are poorly lit and awkwardly shot. The film joins a long list of movies also that has the main baddies being so overpowered that they can effortlessly take out highly trained adversaries. But when they come up against our bumbling duo, all of a sudden these guys are unable to dispatch the cops. This could have been easily solved by making the massacre sprinkle throughout the film just a little bit more even-sided. Will Smith was as good as I've ever seen him in recent years. His son is nowhere in sight, and he's got a decent set of lines and a few internal struggles of his own that give him a fair bit to work with, and as such, Ward is a likeable and a funny character, a throwback to the Will Smith of old. Edgerton as Jacoby is the movie's most valuable player. There's a naivety about his character that is almost laughable, and Edgerton does well to show that Jacoby has a good heart. The special effects were on point. The filmmakers squeezed out what they needed to from the $90 million they were given. The orc effects were a combination of makeup and motion capture, and it was a little bit off-putting at first, but you do get used to it, and it is very well done. The world building could do with further exploration. It is really interesting to see two completely different genres completely mashed up, and I would like to see how they take it further in the future. And there were several interesting ideas briefly thrown into the mix, but honestly I like Bright. It did its job. It was a serviceable action movie. I don't usually comment on critics' reaction to films because everybody has their opinion. But I did take a look at what the general consensus of this film was, and I just think the critics are being really, really harsh with Bright at the moment. It in no way deserves the amount of hate that it gets. It's not an amazing film or nothing, but I've seen a lot worse that's come out this year, but very little has seemed to have been hit as hard by the critics as Bright. Still, I enjoyed it. I would give it a high 6 or a low 7, thereabouts. Thanks for watching.